The story begins in an old house filled with clay dolls, where two workers, Chang and Ai, are scanning the place for a video game project. As they work, Ai talks about the house's dark past, saying the owner was possessed and brutally killed his family with a knife, leaving blood everywhere. Chang asks about the missing body, and Ai explains it was his wife, an artist who made clay dolls in that very studio. Feeling uneasy, Ai warns Chang not to go inside and even suggests praying first, but Chang ignores his fear and tells Ai to bring the scanner so they can finish the job quickly. Then Chang opens a furnace and hears strange noises from inside. When Ai comes back, the furnace door suddenly shuts on its own, and Chang is nowhere to be seen. He starts hearing disturbing noises coming from inside the furnace. Suddenly, Chang appears behind him, scaring him, and shows a strange clay doll he found inside the furnace. The doll has a talisman attached to its back. Then Ai hears a mysterious voice whisper, "Put it back." Terrified, Ai drops the doll, slightly breaking its head. In panic, he tries to run, but suddenly a heavy shelf falls on him, badly injuring him. As Chang runs to get help, the blood flowing from Ai's body starts getting absorbed into the broken clay doll. When Chang returns, Ai is suddenly gone. Moments later, he reappears in a terrifying possessed state. Shocked and scared, Chang tries to escape, but an unseen force grabs his leg and drags him toward the furnace, pulling him inside and killing him. The scene then shifts to Shu Chuan, who wakes up holding a baby doll, practicing because he's about to become a father. He works at a video game company, while his wife Muhua restores old clay figurines, and the couple share a warm, loving bond. At work, the boss is frustrated because Ai hasn't returned with the scan data from the old house, which they need for an important demo. When Shu Chuan tries calling him, the phone suddenly rings nearby, revealing that Ai has quietly appeared in the office. However, he looks strange and barely speaks. As the boss takes the data from him, dark footprints are seen on the stairs he walked through. During the VR meeting, Xuan presents the game's backstory, explaining that it's based on a real murder case where a man named Shu brutally killed his entire family with a knife before ending his own life, while his wife, a famous clay artist named Liu Xin, her body was mysteriously disappeared. Just then, Ai suddenly appears outside, screaming in panic for everyone to run, saying that Liu is coming, repeating the warning again and again before vomiting a black substance, leaving everyone shocked and terrified. Later, the boss tells Hu Chuan that Mr. Chen has approved a project and says he needs his help. Hu Chuan hesitates, unsure about it. The boss reminds him about Ai, who is no longer able to work, and tries to pressure him by offering a bonus, mentioning that he'll soon be a father and could use the extra money, so Shu Chuan agrees. Later that night, Muhua is setting up the baby's room when Shu Chuan comes home with the scan data box from the office that Ai brought earlier. During dinner, he explains that he had no choice but to help his boss because he was promised a raise. Muhua then reveals that she turned down a major restoration project in Rome, even though she's a rising star in her field. She chose to stay home because being there for her child matters more to her. Shu Chuan understands and agrees with her decision. The next day, Shu Chuan continues working on the game while listening to Liu's old recordings, though he keeps eye on cameras that he set up at the home and playfully teases his wife Muhua. While reviewing Liu's videos, he learns something disturbing. She sometimes used soil from graveyards to make her clay dolls. That night, as Shu Chuan works late, he notices Muhua is also busy in another room and tells her to get some rest, but suddenly she appears from a different room, shocking him. When he looks back at where she was working, no one is there. For a brief moment, he even sees a disturbing, demonic face, then suddenly wakes up, realizing it was just a nightmare. Right after, Muhua appears again, startling him for a second, but this time it's real. We also see the same cursed clay doll from the scan data box that Ai brought earlier. Muhua realizes that Shu Chuan is creating a game based on Liu's case and reveals that she actually studied at the same college as Liu. Thinking about how such a good family ended in tragedy makes her emotional. Shu Chuan comforts her, and she asks him to promise that if anything dangerous happens, he must protect their child first. He agrees, assuring her that he will protect both of them. That night, the cameras capture something unseen entering their bedroom, and the door slowly opens on its own. Muhua wakes up from the noise and goes to get some water, but as she drinks, she hears a strange camera sound. When she looks, she notices the motion camera is active even though no one is there, and it's moving by itself. Behind her, a faint glimpse of Liu's cursed spirit can be seen. As she moves, Muhua accidentally bumps into the data box and finds the cursed doll inside. The moment she touches it, her finger gets cut, and her blood is instantly absorbed into the doll. Then she hears someone calling her name. Thinking it's her husband playing a prank, she checks the bedroom, only to find him asleep. The voice continues, turning into a creepy song, and Muhua becomes terrified. Suddenly, the entity connected to the doll emerges and enters her body. The next morning, Shuchuan wakes up to find Muhua already up, but something is clearly wrong. One of her eyes has turned red, she's barely speaking properly, and her behavior feels strange and unstable. At breakfast, she cooks pork liver, even though she normally hates it. She tries to eat only the rice, picking the liver pieces out, but suddenly the liver appears back on her plate, which makes her feel sick. Seeing her condition, Shuchuan assumes she might just be unwell. Later that day, Shuchuan visits Liu's art museum, where all of her handmade dolls are displayed. There, Shuchuan meets Liu's sister, Yen, who explains her sister believed that all living things return to the soil and that emotions and spirits remain within it. To contain those emotions, Liu carved talismans onto her clay dolls, sealing whatever energy was inside. While others mocked her for it, Yen believes Liu did it to protect her creations. Shuchuan reveals that he's from Dreamland Entertainment and wants to buy the rights to Liu's case for his game. Yen agrees, hoping that if the game becomes popular, it might bring attention back to the case and help uncover what really happened to her sister. She asks Shuchuan to inform her if he finds any new clues, and he promises to do so. After that, Shuchuan enters the abandoned house to investigate. He finds a broken doll head covered in blood, and at the same time, a shadow seems to follow him. Sensing something behind him, Shuchuan turns behind but finds no one. Suddenly, Liu's demonic spirit appears in front of him. Terrified, Shuchuan falls as the spirit keeps repeating, "Put the doll back." When he turns on the flashlight again, it vanishes, but then he notices blood dripping from above. Looking up, he sees Liu's husband's dead body hanging from the ceiling, which scares him so badly that he immediately exits the game. It's then revealed that everything that Shuchuan experienced was inside the VR game he's developing. Confused, Shuchuan questions his team because the legal department had strictly forbidden using Liu's real identity in the game, but the team denies adding anything like that. This leaves Shuchuan confused and disturbed because he clearly saw Liu's real form in the game, even though it was never added. The scene shifts to Muhua working when she lowered the AC temperature, but suddenly AC temperature keeps rising on its own. Confused, she spots the cursed doll on the table. When she tries to escape, the door slams shut by itself. Soon, voices begin coming from the doll demanding, "Blood, give me blood." Terrified, Muhua looks into the mirror and sees her reflection smiling back at her. To her horror, she realizes she is holding the doll and a blade. The reflection starts cutting itself, and Muhua is forced to do the same. As she slices her own skin, the blood flows into the doll while she screams in pain. Now fully possessed, Muhua begins to mix her own blood with fresh clay and repair the doll's broken head. Then, using a drill machine, she removes the talisman from the back of the doll. The story then introduces an exorcist named Ah Sheng, a collector of rare talismans. He purchases an expensive one from a fortune teller who gives him a chilling warning that his life is about to change very soon. Later that night, Shuchuan returns home and is shocked to see the cursed doll fully restored, though he has no idea it's dangerous. He asks Muhua about it, but she doesn't respond. That night, the AC temperature rises again, and when Shuchuan tries to lower it, Muhua suddenly starts screaming. She refuses to let him change it and begins scratching her pregnant belly uncontrollably. Even after noticing the deep scratches, Shuchuan still believes she is just unwell. The next day, Shuchuan tells his boss everything, but his boss assumes it's just due to pregnancy hormones and advises him to spend more time with his wife. He also gives Shuchuan a protective amulet that his wife got from a temple, wishing them a smooth delivery. Later, Shuchuan watches footage from the abandoned house where Ah Yi and Chang had been. In one frame, he clearly notices the back of the doll with a talisman attached, which raises his suspicion. Just then, he receives a call from Ah Yi, but the voice is unclear and hard to understand. Sensing something is wrong, Shuchuan becomes worried and immediately heads to Ah Yi's house. At the same time, Muhua is now fully possessed and begins performing a ritual using her blood on a plastic doll. Meanwhile, Shuchuan reaches Ah Yi and is horrified to see Ah Yi stitch one of his eyes. Ah Yi desperately warns him to get a Taoist priest to deal with the clay doll. But at that exact moment, as Muhua starts breaking the doll's hand, Ah Yi's hand also begins to break in front of Shuchuan. One by one, his bones are crushed, and in the end, his neck snaps, killing him in a horrifying way. The scene shifts back to Ah Sheng, where we see his collection of rare talismans. He is currently searching for a powerful one called the Binding Talisman, which can trap any spirit. At the same time, Shuchuan enhances an image of the doll to get a clear look at its talisman. That night, Shuchuan returns home and closely examines the cursed doll. He notices a small baby doll attached to it. The moment he touches it, his own plastic doll suddenly starts crying. He rushes to remove its batteries, but accidentally pricks himself with a pin. As his foot begins to bleed, he looks back at the plastic doll and is horrified to see that the doll is completely dismantled and resembles Ai's dead body. Just then, Muhua comes outside and starts banging on the door. The entity leaves Muhua's body and enters Shuchuan. This happens because his blood was absorbed by the doll, and the spirit possesses whoever offers blood. He begins losing control, almost fully possessed, but the safety charm his boss gave him suddenly activates, breaking the possession just in time. When he regains his senses, he sees the charm is destroyed and the talisman on the doll is gone. Realizing the danger, he grabs the doll and tries to escape, but as soon as he opens the door, he is confronted by a possessed Muhua, who snatches the doll from him and runs away, completely ignoring him. Immediately, Shuchuan rushes to a temple and shows the cursed doll talisman to a priest. The priest explains that it's written in ancient Taoist characters, making it extremely powerful, but also notices that some parts are missing. This connects to the earlier moment when a piece of the doll's head broke off, taking part of the talisman with it and unknowingly unleashing the demonic force. Desperate, Shuchuan asks for help, explaining that his wife is in serious danger. The priest then tells him he knows someone who might be able to help. The next day, Ah Sheng is teaching a class about talismans, explaining that each one has a specific meaning and every line carries its own energy. If even a single line is broken or missing, the entire talisman fails. Shuchuan attends the class and approaches him afterward for help. At first, Ah Sheng refuses, but everything changes when he sees the picture of the talisman on the doll. He immediately recognizes it as an ancient binding talisman used to seal powerful evil spirits that cannot be destroyed, only trapped inside a vessel like the clay doll. Desperate, Shuchuan asks if the talisman can be completed to seal the spirit again. Ah Sheng agrees to try, warning that it's risky. Then, both of them head to Shuchuan's house. Following Ah Sheng's plan, Shuchuan goes to bring Muhua, but finds her eating raw meat. The moment she sees him, she walks away, but in the living room, she comes face to face with Ah Sheng, who is holding the cursed doll. Possessed Muhua attacks, but Ah Sheng has already spread salt on the floor, causing the demon inside her to suffer. Shuchuan tries to calm her, but she clings to him to avoid touching the salt. As Ah Sheng begins the exorcism, the entity begins peeking through Muhua's eyes. Ah Sheng throws talismans at her and starts an exorcism, but the spirit refuses to leave Muhua's body. Realizing the connection with blood, Ah Sheng uses his own blood on the doll. This forces the demon to leave Muhua and attack him instead. He quickly grabs it and seals it back into the doll using a talisman. For a moment, it seems successful. Muhua collapses unconscious, but suddenly the talisman on the doll burns away. The entity is far too powerful. It returns and possesses Muhua again. This time, Ah Sheng manages to restrain her by binding her eyes with a cloth, forcing her into unconsciousness. Ah Sheng restrains Muhua using holy items and explains that blood-feeding spirits are extremely dangerous. Just a drop of blood can let them possess someone. He admits he used the wrong talisman earlier, which is why it only worked briefly. From the missing parts of the talisman, there could be many variations, making it hard to fix. He then reveals the real danger. Such spirits take full control of a body within 7 days. When Shuchuan realizes it's already the 6th day, Ah Sheng warns that by sunrise tomorrow, Muhua may be gone forever. To stop it, they begin investigating the doll's origin. They visit Liu's sister Yen, but she doesn't recognize the doll at all. Ah Sheng explains that this doll may hold the truth about her sister's fate and could also help save Muhua. To uncover the truth, Ah Sheng suggests a risky ritual to connect Yen's spirit with her dead sister. Yen agrees, and Ah Sheng begins the ritual. During the ritual, Yen's eyes are covered as Ah Sheng chants spells. Soon, she is pulled into a vision where she finds herself in a forest. There, she sees her sister Liu collecting soil from a graveyard. Liu is pregnant and clearly in pain, yet she continues doing heavy work. On her way back, she suddenly collapses and suffers a miscarriage, breaking down in agony as blood pours out. After this tragedy, Liu falls into deep depression. In a disturbing turn, she takes the remains of her unborn child and mixes them with graveyard soil to create the cursed doll. This is the true origin of the doll, which Yen witnesses and later explains remains to Ah Sheng and Shu Chuan. Ah Sheng realizes that Liu combined the remains of the unborn child with soil filled with restless spirits, then fused everything together in a furnace. This created a single powerful demonic entity, far stronger than any normal spirit. The entity eventually possessed Liu, driving her to kill her family. After regaining her senses, Liu tried to stop the evil by creating a powerful talisman and placing it on the doll, showing her deep knowledge of such practices. In the end, she sealed herself along with the doll inside a hidden wall behind the furnace and turned it on, sacrificing herself to contain the entity. This means Liu's body is still hidden inside that wall. As Yen comes out of the vision, she breaks down in tears. Then, Ah Sheng and Shu Chuan return to the cursed house to find Liu's body. On the way, Ah Sheng tells his plan: if they can trap the demon inside Liu's skeleton, it might work better than the doll since a human skeleton is a stronger vessel. But first, they must restore the missing part of the talisman. They bring the unconscious Mu Hua with them and arrive at the house. Ah Sheng gives Shu Chuan another safety charm and goes inside, but Shu Chuan supports him in a different way. Instead of entering physically, he uses the VR game based on the house. Sitting in the car, he plays the game and guides Ah Sheng over the phone, telling him where to go. They are working together in real life and the virtual world. Inside the game, the spirit attacks and defeats Shu Chuan, forcing him to restart again. That's when Shu Chuan realizes the entire house was scanned into the game, so even the missing piece of the doll should exist there. If he finds it, they can recover the missing part of the talisman. Now, Shu Chuan searches for the broken talisman piece inside the game, while Ah Sheng continues searching for Liu's body in the real world. While searching, Ah Sheng is stopped by the evil spirits inside the house, but he fights his way through the spirit and finally reaches the furnace. Inside a hidden space, he discovers Liu's body and informs Shu Chuan. Meanwhile, in the game, Shu Chuan notices a strange glitch that feels like trapped energy. When he looks closer, he realizes it's actually Liu's spirit. Earlier, she kept repeating, "Put the doll back," and now she reveals the missing piece of the doll. Liu's spirit was never evil. She was trying to warn them all along and help stop the curse. Shu Chuan finally finds the missing part of the talisman in the game and quickly sketches it. But possessed Mu Hua begins to wake up when he exits the game. Mu Hua is gone. At the same time, Ah Sheng pulls Liu's skull out from the furnace. Just then, Shu Chuan arrives looking for Mu Hua, but suddenly the furnace door slams shut and the demon activates it. As he tries to help Ah Sheng, the possessed Mu Hua appears and brutally attacks him. Even then, Shu Chuan doesn't give up. Using his last strength, he presses the safety charm onto Mu Hua's forehead, making the demon suffer in pain. The furnace door suddenly opens, and for a brief moment, Mu Hua regains consciousness. Shu Chuan quickly gives the completed talisman drawing to Ah Sheng and rushes to his wife, while Ah Sheng prepares for the final ritual. As the ritual begins, Ah Sheng uses blood to summon the demon out of Mu Hua's body and tries to force it into Liu's skull. But before he can seal it, the fragile skull breaks and the demon escapes again, re-entering Mu Hua. Ah Sheng realizes that the combined spirits inside the demon want to be reborn through Mu Hua's unborn child. With no time left, Ah Sheng says the only way to stop it is to trap the demon inside the child's body, but Shu Chuan refuses and begs him to find another way. In the end, Shu Chuan makes a sacrifice. He offers his own blood to the cursed doll. The demon immediately leaves Mu Hua and possesses him instead. Even then, the entity is too strong, throwing Ah Sheng aside. Possessed, Shu Chuan turns toward Mu Hua, ready to harm her, but seeing her pregnant belly brings back his memories. For a brief moment, he regains control and, to stop the demon from taking over completely, he injures himself in the eye and tells Ah Sheng to seal it now. Ah Sheng quickly draws the binding talisman on Shu Chuan's back, trapping the demon inside him forever. The ritual succeeds, but Shu Chuan dies in the process, leaving Mu Hua heartbroken. Months later, Mu Hua gives birth and tries to move on with her life. She even receives an updated version of Shu Chuan's game, where she can interact with a digital version of him, a small comfort, but only a simulation. In the final moments, Ah Sheng adds the binding talisman to his collection, hinting that there are still more powerful talismans left to find. Meanwhile, Yen is shown keeping the cursed doll, suggesting something dark in her mind. And in a final twist, it's revealed that Shu Chuan is still alive, but in a coma, leaving the door open for what comes next. And the movie ends. And that wraps up Mudborn. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell for more chilling movie stories. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.